So this is when the desire to actually eat this is much greater than the desire to keep filming. So stick with me for a second, we're almost there. Back in my restaurant days, I used to work for this extraordinary chef that really influenced my cooking today. And back when I worked for her, I was always looking forward to the spring because on my station, I would get the chance to make chowder. And I have this very strict idea of what chowder used to be like until I tasted hers, which was full of herbs and tangy and packed with seasonal ingredients. And today I'm going to show you how to make a chowder inspired by her. So chowder actually comes from chaude in French, which means warm water. And when I realized that, I felt so differently about chowder because it kind of allowed me to feel like, oh, it's actually a very versatile dish. There's not just Manhattan or New England. So today we're making this super spring inspired chowder. That's gonna start with, of course, bacon. Today I have a slab of bacon and I'm gonna cut about half a cup. Not too thin, not too thick. Almost a slice of like a pre-sliced stuff from the store. And if you are using the stuff from the store, you can do about 4 slices. Okay, so now I have my sliced bacon. It's gonna go into a Dutch oven. This Dutch oven is cold. And I'm gonna turn it on. And we'll just cook that over medium heat until it's fully rendered. All right, so the next step into our pot is gonna be leeks. Today I'm just gonna take 1 leek. I'm gonna cut up the top. And with those tops, don't throw them out. I always keep them in a little freezer bag. And then when it's gonna be ready to make some stock, I'll show you how I make my stock. So with this now, we're gonna basically, for this recipe, we're gonna cut everything so that it fits a spoon about. So I'm gonna do cubes. Slice every half in 3 pieces like this, and then cube away. All right, so for leeks, they're always super dirty. And a good way to clean them is you just take a bowl of water and give them a little swim in there. And we're gonna fish them out of there once they're ready to be added to the pot with the bacon. All right, so our bacon is looking nice and crispy. We're gonna add, this is optional, but I have it on hand. I'm gonna add a few sprigs of thyme. And I just don't have it in me to like pick it, so I'm gonna do whole sprigs. And then once the sprigs are in, we're doing the leeks. So fish them out of here and add them to your pot. And we're not adding any oil because the rendered smoky bacon fat is what we're gonna be cooking with the whole time. That's gonna be flavoring our chowder. Once again, over medium heat, we're gonna cook it until it's nice and tender and caramelized. The leeks are cooking. Let's talk about some clams. I have about 1.25 pounds of clams today that I washed. Clams don't need to be soaked or like soaked overnight with some grits. I've heard that before. I don't really think that's necessary. I think as long as you run them under cold water, very cold water, until the water runs clear, you're good to go. And if you store them, make sure they're not submerged in water or in a closed bag because they're alive and they need to breathe and you don't want them to die before you cook them. All right, so the leeks are nice and tender now and we're off to the next step, which is gonna be, even though we're using some bacon and some clams, we're still gonna do a little bit of salt. And there's one thing I can tell you, is that clams, bacon, and leeks are very good friends with black pepper. So go off with the black pepper. And then we're gonna do all our clams, followed by our liquids. Our liquids, we're gonna do wine. Don't break the bank, you know, so I'm gonna do 2 cups of that in here. And then I'll be doing 1 cup of water. Give it just a little stir. And what we're trying to do here is just cook the clams. So we'll cover it up. And that's probably gonna take like 5 minutes. I'm using wine and water. So the wine is gonna bring a lot of tanginess and, you know, acidic notes and all that good stuff. And then the water is almost like we're gonna be replacing the stock by water because we're using whole clams, whole manila clams. As they cook, they're gonna release some really fantastic flavors and that's gonna be flavoring sort of everything together. So we're cooking that, and while this is cooking, let's take a look at our potatoes. I'm using 4 potatoes today. They're 4 nice waxy potatoes. The bigger you cut them, the longer they'll take to cook. So I'll do some sort of like a medium dice with those. A lot of people think that potatoes are good all the time, but spring potatoes, precisely these little waxy potatoes, are so sweet right now. They're freshly harvested. They're the kind of potatoes you need to keep in the fridge because they're not cured. They keep a texture, but then they get that sweetness and that creaminess that just I adore. So this is sort of when the restaurant tricks come in, because it's sort of counterintuitive to cook the potatoes last, but I'm cooking the clams first because I'm flavoring the broth as much as possible that then those potatoes are gonna cook in. So now that our clams have been boiling for probably 2 minutes and they're fully cooked, I'm just gonna fish them out and place them on a dish off to the side like this. All right, so the clams are all gone now. And we're left with the leeks, the bacon, the wine, and then the water. And now that's when we add in our potatoes. So potatoes are going in, and we're gonna just gently boil them, covered in this really flavorful broth until they're just tender. And in the meantime, let's prepare our last 2 ingredients, which is the 2 ingredients that need the less preparation, but also the less cooking, and that's where we're doing that very last. Okay, so for asparagus, it's extremely simple. Because they're so early in the season, they don't have a tough skin yet, so I don't need to peel them. Just take it, and naturally, it will break towards the bottom, and that's when it gets a bit fibrous on the inside, is where it breaks. So that you won't be using, and it's not really good for anything else. I can probably be using the equivalent of like almost half a bunch of asparagus. And then we're left with this, which is up to you. If you want to do, actually, I don't really know what I want to do. This. What is this? I don't know. Sliced. And these are ready to go. And then I have frozen peas. There are a ton of English peas ready at the market right now, but I do have to say, frozen peas are just straight up nostalgia for me, and if I have to choose, I'm gonna go for frozen pea. They're affordable, they're sweeter, and they're very consistent, so I'm gonna use half a cup of frozen peas in this recipe. So, call me crazy. As our potatoes are cooking, we have our clams, right? That's when you get to make a choice. You get to stick with the drama and keep the clams in their shell and keep them just really like give a lot of texture to your texture. You're not gonna chew on some shell, but you know, it will look like substantial and exciting to look at. Or you go the more conservative route and you pick your clams out of the shell, toss the shell, and go off, pick the drama or the conservative. I'm here for the drama, so I'm keeping my clams in their shell. So that's that.
A few moments later.
Does that mean they're done?
Mm-hmm. Just tender and hot as hell. Okay. Now in goes really exciting stuff. A cup of sour cream, and we're just gonna mix that in. Now to this asparagus, all in, and English peas. Last but not least, we're gonna add our clams back. We're gonna cover this up for a few minutes, just to barely cook the asparagus and the peas, and then we'll be ready to eat. All right, so this is when the desire to actually eat this is much greater than the desire to keep filming. So stick with me for a second, we're almost there. Lemon, very important. Half of a lemon. Don't just do like half, do half a lemon in here. Perfect. And then get yourself your 2 biggest bowls, because you're gonna want them. Oh, look at this drama. Look at it all. This is the texture I've always wanted a clam chowder to be. Not from the shells, but just the right amount of cream, the right amount of chunks. Oh my God. This is definitely enough for 3 people. I made it for 2, but I'm currently changing my mind. Okay, once again, call me crazy, but we may have happened to have 3 types of herbs on hand. So I'm gonna do a little bit of parsley, a little bit of mint. This is optional, but if you have it, go off. A little bit of thyme, not too much, that's strong. There you go. Okay? It wouldn't be Alex's kitchen if it wasn't for a little drizzle of oil. It's gonna give some character. You know, you have the creaminess and the sour from the sour cream, and you're adding this clean, peppery fat. Oh, and speaking of pepper, black pepper. Yes. Oh my god. This is a lifetime of work in this plate. Figure out the kind of clam chowder I really dream to eat. Oh, the fact that we're using sour cream and wine and whole clams as opposed to canned clams just brings so much flavor to that stock. I mean, it's creamy, but it's tangy, and it has the smokiness of the bacon and the perfectly cooked potatoes and the perfectly textured vegetables in there, the asparagus. I'm dying over it. I'm dying over it, and you should really try it because it's f***ing delicious. Thank you for watching so much, and I will see you in the next one with another fabulous recipe. So, goodbye. Well, I should do some tasting, right?